What's one habit you're slightly ashamed of, but you're secretly convinced is the only thing standing between you and total collapse?
Okay.
Welcome to Praxis Project. If you're a CEO, senior leader, or board member navigating the fast-evolving world of business, you have found your hub of actionable insight and no-nonsense discussion.
The only thing standing between me and total collapse, but it's something I'm
Could be
slightly
like
ashamed of.
Emotional collapse, mental collapse. So I can start at two came to mind for me. And one is I have to do Wordle every morning. And I diminishing satisfaction the more guesses that it takes me. So today it took me all 5 guesses. And I was like, I need to pick it up tomorrow. For me, this is my way of fighting off dementia. Well, if I can do Wordle every day and if I can get it in 2, then I'm good to go. So that's one. And then 2 is I also will watch as I'm falling to sleep old YouTube videos of comedians or McDonald or Kevin Nealon or older comedians. I know them all. I know the jokes, but like something about hearing how they say it just puts me in a good mood as I go to sleep.
That's really nice.
So I bookend my days with those.
I'm a Wordle person every morning as well, but I'll add to that. I do 2 of the other puzzles from the New York Times app, which is connections and strands. Yeah. And I challenge myself with connections, and I have a little bit of a competition with 2 of my brothers on doing purple first for connections. Which is tricky. So one of my brothers and I were just racing to 50, and I just got to 50 today. Now, I've been playing it more. Well, I've played like 500 times, but I've just recently started doing it. So every morning, Wordle, connections, and strands. And with strands, I forget what they call them. There's a core word in strands. The yellow word. So I have to get the yellow word first. Start with the yellow word first, then do the others. Connections, I have to do purple first. And I'm trying so hard to do the reverse rainbow. So a reverse rainbow in connections is highest scoring connection, which is purple, blue, green, and then yellow. And it just, some days it's really frustrating because their colors are, wow, hold on. I got to redo that.
It's emotional for you.
I'm getting dementia is not coming for you. Don't worry.
I'm all verklempt. So some days they put what I think is blue, they don't think is blue. I'm like, how is that not blue? Anyway, but yes. And I'm convinced I share the same, a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but I also at the same time, look, I'm working and exercising my brain. This is going to prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever. I want to stay healthy and challenge myself. So anyway, I'm with you. I just added a couple there.
I have a drink ritual in the morning, which is I drink hot water with lemon. I have enough lemons to last me until we get thawed out. Celery juice, ginger, then turmeric. It's like a whole ritual, and it travels with me when I'm on the road too. So it's like the pressure is on. We have to source all these things and these ingredients. I literally bring lemons with me on the plane. Celery juice, I only have until Tuesday. So hopefully the road's cleared up. I've been doing this for years, and I feel like this is how I've been able to ward sickness away, and it's in my head. So I'm a little obsessive about it.
And so you drink the celery juice separate and then ginger and turmeric separate?
So I get it from Trader Joe's. I bought 10 last time, stock up. They're great, really best value. You could get them at Juice Press, but this is the best value at Trader Joe's. So you have to have all these conversations with you when you check out. I'm the celery juice lady, and then now I'm the celery juice, ginger, and turmeric lady. It's the same conversation.
They know you.
Yep, here I am. I'm the juice lady.
So we're all trying to stay healthy, either mentally or physically, by doing very specific things in the morning. That's great. So today we are going to be talking about an HBR article from January 26, why keeping up with change feels harder than ever. Organizations are trapped on a transformation treadmill where the sheer velocity and volume of AI augmented shifts have made traditional change readiness obsolete. The article argues that the gap between executive intent and employee capacity has reached a breaking point, requiring a shift from reactive adaptation to proactive change-seeking cultures. So let's dig in on the article. And one thought as I had this was, if your employees are tired of change, it's not because they're lazy. It's because your leadership might be reactive and not as proactive as it could be. Anyway, lots of interesting things within this article on change. I think we all can argue and would agree that change has just been absolutely crazy. One other thing, and then we'll jump into some discussion here. The article talks about 4 factors that are making change ungovernable, making it really difficult today. One is stacked changes. So it's not that there's just more changes, but they actually are stacked on top of each other in terms of the sequence of things. Number 2, interdependent changes. So changes aren't only complex, they're also complicated and all interrelated. So it makes it hard to think about one change because you've got multiple changes that are interconnected. Number 3, these changes, a lot of them are externally driven by large external factors like technology changes, economic uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty, etc. These things that are just coming at us, we have no control over them, but they're impacting our jobs, our day-to-day. And finally, continuous changes. So changes aren't only happening faster, they're continuous. And sometimes, more often than not now, they're not time bound. There's no clear start and end date to these changes. So that just really makes it complex.
My first take on this was when I read the title, Why Keeping Up with Change Feels Harder Than Ever. I was like, yeah, it doesn't. I feel validated for thinking that. But I guess my overall thought on this was, the need for communication, transparency, and maybe vulnerability between leaders and their organization. Because leaders are struggling with change too. What direction do we go? How's this going to impact the business? And you can't be vulnerable about everything, but admitting that we don't really know how this is going to impact us. Here's our best guess based on these factors. And that leans into the culture of change versus just building enthusiasm for change. That if employees and teams hear their leaders admitting, we don't have all the answers, but here's our best guess and here's why we think this. And based on this, here are the directions that we're going to go, and things may change. And I also thought about, no pun intended with that, but more consistent communication instead of just announcing the change or announcing here's what we're going to do differently and here's how we're going to execute it. Talking about it, as the article talks about, speaking about change as a journey, not a destination. So more continuous communication with employees and teams to say, this is what we talked about last time. Here's what we think, or here's updated information, or here's updated strategy based on things that have happened in the meantime. So being more present to teams, I think.
It's a great word. Yeah. Valerie?
One of the first things that came to mind is it's only a matter of time when certain profiles become the urban Amish, where the speed in which things are changing is outpacing. And so that's one, a fear, and hopefully it's a motivator to always be evolving. I think of this as a positive, or easily can be spinned as a positive. The hard part is I feel like the past 5 years we've spent using all of this energy and capital to fight through on all the unpredictable economic changes that nobody had any impact on. So fortunately, we're in a position where it's really technology and it's really just accelerators that we're just trying to keep up with. I think we burned some goodwill with employees and just getting tired of all the constant change altogether. So as Mark is saying, be more vulnerable, lead with empathy, understand where people come from, acknowledge this is tiring and it's exhausting, but it's a game changer. You have to really lean into all the changes that you can accept in terms of what's out there in technology and everything else in terms of other aspects of business to optimize what you're doing on day to day. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
And the article actually mentioned that the people they surveyed, 79% of employees don't trust their organization's ability to change effectively. So for me, that's where vulnerability comes to mind. If you're presenting it as, here's the issue, here's what we're going to do, here's the change that we're going to undergo. But employees remember the last time you said that, it didn't work out how you predicted. Promise that it's going to be open about the fact that we're doing the best we can. And based on this data, and invite the employees to participate and go on the journey with you.
That was a pretty striking statistic. Yeah. I think related to tying some of these together, the article also talks about engaging people to foresee multiple future scenarios. And I think this, and linking that to shifting away from adaptation towards change seeking, because adaptation, while I think it's a great word, I have an article on adaptation, why it's important, but you could argue it's reactive. I'm adapting to the changes as they happen, but that puts me in a reactive set circumstance. But if I'm change seeking and I can be engaged with the leadership team or with my team, my group, or with others in trying to foresee possible outcomes in the future, now I'm engaging my own mind, emotional state, and trying to see where things could go. And even if none of them happen, I'm at least in this proactive, forward-looking position, which can help me regulate even my own emotions as I think about the anxiety that could be with those things, that I've thought through them. And even if the future that does happen isn't one of those, I've already positioned myself to be open to various scenarios. So it helps mitigate some of the stress, I think, related around it. It creates engagement because we're talking about it, and we're creating a forward-looking, change-seeking orientation that positions us to better embrace this change as a journey. It's not a destination. There no longer is an explicit start and stop. This is going to continue to happen, and these things are going to happen, and we'll talk about them. We'll be vulnerable and open and honest about them, but we've got to learn to be proactively seeking, what would we do if that happened? How could we best address this challenge or that challenge, and be proactively seeking those better outcomes?
Well said.
I think the communication is really the key, and it's not just communicating more, but the substance of the communication matters. Yep. Employees are going to, anybody, it's a human thing. You're going to hear, there's always a difference between what you intend to say and what the person receives. Employees are going to hear what's in it for them. How is it going to impact my position, my security, my future? And so, like you said, Barry, envisioning multiple scenarios. This could turn out like this, getting them to think that this is the general direction that we're going, but we don't know exactly how this is going to land. I think from a legal standpoint, you're better positioned than as a company to defend things like wrongful termination or whistleblower claims that, we said this was the plan, we didn't go that way. Hey, nothing is rigid here. We're trying to adjust to all of these different factors that we don't have control over.
Communications core. There's actually a video, and I'll put the link below, that we've posted to Praxis, which is an old talk I did on perspective taking, which, if you're thinking about communication, you have to put yourself into the shoes and perspective of the audience. What are they thinking, feeling, seeing? How are they going to receive, interpret, or understand your message? To your point, Marcus, it's one thing for me to have my own intent, but I have to be really mindful of how and what, and the tone and when, to whom, that I'm saying these things, particularly when they're of increasing importance. And the article does share 4 questions that I thought were really good for people to think about when you're crafting messages. Number 1, why is the change occurring? That why is really important. Number 2, who is impacted by the change? Internal, external. What is the link to other changes? Because again, changes are not happening in isolation. They're stacked, they're interdependent. What are those other changes, and how does this impact other things we know are ongoing? And then number 4, how could this change impact employees? So am I thinking about the folks in the audience, who I'm communicating to? What is the impact to them? And if I'm thinking through those 4 questions and crafting those communications to people, I'm going to put people more at ease because I'm answering the questions that are going to be important for them to understand.
It's a great framework. So in the article, it included the SCARF framework.
Oh,
it's really interesting, but it's essentially what you're saying, but attaching metaphors with thinking about what people are thinking about. I think metaphors are a very powerful tool.
That's a great example. So whether it's SCARF or something like it or similar, I think having a framework in mind is super helpful. Metaphors, the more you can relate it to individuals and people and have metaphors that do that, it's a much better form of communication, and you're really getting your point across. Yeah. And you're ensuring that the intent of what you want to say is more likely to be what is actually received because you've thought through it.
I think there's a really big role for middle managers here. Leaders, executives are going to kind of have the high level strategic pivots and changes, but they're not going to have a lot of that. And they can communicate those to the entire team, but they're not going to have a lot of the day-to-day interactions. And so executives having a really strong relationship with their directors and managers and modeling, I think, the behavior that they want those directors and managers to exhibit toward the employees as those questions come up, I think is really important.
I couldn't agree more. Fortunately, I worked for CEOs that are great at metaphors and great at storytelling. And that's great in an all-hands town hall setting. And everyone seems to be fine with the messaging. Once you start branching out into the one-on-one meetings, and that's when all of, concerns start bubbling up, and I didn't even know you were thinking about that. So I think it is really important to really equip the middle managers, because I think that's where you could probably get to the meat of what concerns really are amongst team. So good point.
That's great. And the other thing I would say to that as well is being careful of, once you go outside the broad communication, it can be, because again, things are changing all the time, it can be easy for us to start to have variations of that conversation, either in one-on-ones or smaller group settings. And now we're creating some confusion and chaos. Again, not intentionally. We have to be cognizant of, am I contradicting something I just said in yesterday's town hall meeting or last week's town hall meeting to, a subgroup of people? And that message is going to get out, right? People talk, messages spread. So we just have to be mindful of the evolving nature of what's happening with change and how we're communicating around that.
That's potentially an oversight in rolling out any of these changes, is really equipping leadership with talking points and making sure everyone's really aligned. Every department lead is really aligned on the messaging when they're in the one-on-one scenarios. That potentially would be something we'd raise as a red flag or something to look out for.
Which is maybe another kind of note to CEOs is they're thinking about not only the things we've just talked about in terms of steps they can think about, but making sure that if you're a CEO or a leader, you've got ears on in the organization, listening for issues and challenges. It can be easy, again, at the top of the house to just hear some issues bubble up and choose not to take action. Be like, it'll be okay. We'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. Or, well, we're going to change it again, so let's not deal with it now. But the more of those issues we sweep under the carpet, the more they fester. And employees are always going to tell themselves the worst possible version of any story you haven't made clear. So I think if you're in a position where things are changing rapidly, you need to be listening, to your point, Valerie, to those middle managers who have a broader set of ears in the organization. Have those mechanisms, those lines of communication set up so you're hearing when there are issues and knowing when you need to come back with some communication to quell people's fears or provide additional context. It's a great point.
That is a really good point, because I'm thinking about a situation where we redid our company's core values. And we were, the executive team, we were off site for a day and we were jazzed about it. Oh God, this makes so much sense. So great. And we rolled it out and, how do we think it went? Oh, I think it went really great. That's really cool. And then because I had relationships with employees, they come and ask, do you really think this? And it was something that we had said during the meeting. I'm like, yeah, why not? And the way they explained it, I never thought of that. And so you're not going to get the asking after a town hall among the executives, how do we think it went? We'll see is probably the best, most accurate answer you can give, because it's not going to come up. Employees aren't going to raise their hand and say, hey, that was a lot of bullshit. They're not going to say that. They'll say it to their manager or someone they have relationships with. It's going to come up in the days and weeks that follow. And so understanding that and keeping a pulse on what happens, I think, not from a vindictive standpoint, but you need to know where your people are. You need to know what they're thinking. And if you're flying blind, if you don't have ears to the ground, how can you lead effectively?
I also think about workshopping some of these things. So if you're looking to communicate a critical message, pull in a different group of people than the people who have just been making the decision and prompt engineer that conversation, to use an AI term, prompt engineer this workshop and ask really good questions. What are 2 or 3 things that would cause concern about this particular initiative or this particular communication? What are 2 or 3 things people might worry about that we haven't thought about? And you really try to get some engaging conversation about how you can improve that communication. It doesn't take long to do a quick little pull a group of people together, and even do it as yourself as an executive team, right? Don't assume that you have all the answers and that what you're going to say is going to resonate with people because you've been sitting on it for days or weeks. They've never heard of it. So you have all this context and information and you didn't extract it, didn't share it, and now all of a sudden you expect them to be excited about it. You got to bring them on the journey. If it's a journey, bring them on the journey. Don't expect them to show up at the destination and be excited because how did we get here?
Well said. Well said.
You're using the scarf technique on us, you're using your metaphors. If it's going to be a journey, you got to pack your bags.
Excellent. Well, again, great article here. If you're feeling the pain and angst of change constantly in your organization and your people, this is a great resource, great article to read and give you some clear tips that you can use both for yourself, for how you're communicating, things you can work on with your teams to improve their ability and interest in seeking change as opposed to just focusing on adaptation and calling it out, naming it, being vulnerable to say, this is tough. There are a lot of things happening simultaneously here. It's hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for you. And we've got to have a forum to talk about it and understand that this is all a journey.